A Long Walk to Water, a message from Salva. This book is based on the true story of my life. I hope that the book, I hope that because of the book, more people will learn about the lost boys in the country of Sudan. I was born in a small village called Lonarik in Tanj country, southern Sudan. Just as it says in the book, I stayed in refugee camps in Ethiopia and Kenya for many years before I came to America. I'm thankful to a great many people. The United Nations and the International Red Cross Company supported my life when I was in danger of starvation. The Moore family, St. Paul Episcopal Church, and the community of Rochester, New York welcomed me into the United States. I'm also grateful for the education I have received, especially at Monroe Community College. And deepest gratitude to the people who have helped me with my project, Water for Sudan Incorporated, the schools, churches, civic organizations, and individuals all over the country. Special thanks to the Board of Water for Sudan and to the Rotary Clubs who have worked closely with me. My dreams of helping the people back home in Sudan are beginning to come true. I overcame difficult situations in my past because of the hope and perseverance that I had. I would not have made it without these two things. To young people, I would like to say, stay calm when things are hard or not going right with you. You will get through it when you persevere instead of quitting. Quitting leads to much less happiness in life than perseverance and hope. Salva, Rochester, New York, 2010. Author's note. Some of the details in the story have been fictionalized, but the major events depicted are based on Salva's own experiences. I read his written accounts and interviewed him for many hours. I also read other books and accounts by the Lost Boys. For Naya's part of the story, I was able to interview travelers who have seen the water wells and being drilled into villages like hers. I also benefited from examining their video footage and photographs. Known as the Second Sudanese Civil War, the conflict that depicted in this book began in 1983. Many factions were involved and numerous changes in leadership took place over the duration of the war, but in essence, the opposing sides were the Muslim-dominated government in the north and the non-Muslim coalition in the south. Besides religion, economic strife was an important factor, and the country's reserves of oil are located in the south. Millions of people were killed, imprisoned, tortured, kidnapped, or enslaved. Millions were permanently displaced, unable to return to their homes. Among those displaced were hundreds of thousands of so-called lost boys like Salva, who walked in desperation through southern Sudan, Ethiopia, and Kenya in search of a safe haven. Many of the lost boys who were able to return home after the war found that their families had vanished. Others languished in refugee camps like those Salva lived in. Some were eventually reunited with their loved ones, often decades apart. In 2002, nearly 20 years after the war began, the United States government passed the Sudan Peace Act, officially accusing the Sudanese government of genocide and the deaths of more than 2 million people. 3 years later, a peace accord was signed between the North and the South. The South was granted autonomy, the ability to govern itself, for 6 years. In 2011, a referendum took place in which the citizens of Southern Sudan voted to secede, gaining their independence from the North. Unrest over South Sudan's oil and its political leadership have roiled its infancy as the world's newest nation. The war in Darfur in the western part of Sudan is a separate conflict, not covered by the peace accord. As of this writing, the war that is still being fought between the factions who identify themselves as Arabic and those who consider themselves African. The two wars, combined with several years of severe drought, have brought untold suffering to the people of Sudan. In size, Sudan is the largest country in Africa and the 10th largest in the world. Salva has seen his family in Sudan twice more since the events of this story, including a moving reunion with his cousins, the children of Uncle Jawir. And amazingly, 7 of the lost boys who walked with Salva from Ethiopia to Kenya met up with him again when they were relocated in Rochester, New York area. As the spring of 2014, Salva Dude's Foundation for Water South Sudan has drilled more than 200 wells in southern Sudan for Dinka and newer communities, supplying fresh water for at least 500,000 people. The very first well was drilled in Salva's home village of Lunarik. Salva now spends half the year in the United States raising money for the foundation and the other half in Sudan, drilling wells. You can learn more about the foundation's work at www.waterforsudan.org. I first met Salva several years ago when my husband and I learned about Water for Sudan. In 2008, my husband traveled to Sudan to see the wells firsthand. I'm grateful for his help in answering my endless questions. This story could not have been written without him. My family and I feel very fortunate to count Salva as a friend. It has truly been an honor for me to write this book about him.